So it's not a great time to be alive at the moment. We've got this silly virus knocking around.
How are you feeling, Mr. Lister?
Oh, much better, thanks, Crichton. Much better.
High unemployment figures. And a crashing economy.
Over the course of 517 days, the stock market dropped by more than 56%. Millions of people lost their jobs, their homes, and their life savings. It was the worst time for the global economy since the Great Depression. Now, this is the 2020 economic collapse.
However, there is some good news, and that news comes in the form of the Ultimate 64. But first, what we need is a firmware upgrade. So I'm going to do this with you, show you how simple it is. Let's power on this bad boy. This is the machine I made in a video a while ago where I put together the casing here, which is rather nice, I think. Okay, so we booted up and we do a reset. I went to the back there, I'm so used to the Ultimate 2 here. Do a reset, go to our USB stick and go to the update 1.34.u64, run it, blom blom blom. So it's just checking the image. Yes please, we're going to flash that. Something nice about doing this, it tickles my technical side. Shouldn't take too long. And we should be good to go. Let's go into the menu again. Right, so we've got an absolute marathon coming up, and here's a sneak preview. Okie dokie, so let's have a looky here. So I've made a folder here. So what we've basically done, in fact, let's have a look before I forget at these settings. So there's going to be a bunch of improvements, but the one I'm interested in is U64 specific. But this is what we're interested in, 1 megahertz CPU speed. Now this explains, before we move on, why the Ultimate 2 actually won't get this update. That's because that we're using the actual CPU in the 64 itself. In this case we don't have a ordinary CPU in here, so we now get a wonderful turbo control and a few other options that I'm not sure about just yet, but I'm not going to play with it too long. Also Super CPU detect, but that doesn't mean this has got a Super CPU addition to it. It just means if you've got the actual hardware it will detect it. So running at the usual 1 megahertz, so I'm going to show a game at the usual speed and then we're going to try it at its super fast speeds and see how we go. What I've done is make up this folder with a couple of things I'd like to test. Another world, I'd like to see if the frame rate improves on that, because that's quite a cinematic kind of game. A little look at GEOS as well, because if that could be improved in its speed, that could be quite amazing. A couple of RU 16 megabyte demos and some 512K ones. I'll explain why a bit later. And I've chosen some games: Driller, Elite 128, Starglider, Stunt Car Racer, Super Mario Brothers, which I don't think is going to speed up much, but we could at least run it at the 2 megahertz of the 128 version, so that will run really, really well, and also Test Drive. So basically I've chosen a few games and some demos, and GEOS, which is an operating system. So let's start with Driller. Okay, so this game is notorious for being quite jerky, especially the frame rate on a slow 1 megahertz 6502. Wow, literally click, wait, move. That's shockingly bad. Good news is we can change it. Let's try that at 2 megahertz. So that's twice as fast. Okay, slightly more responsive, but to be honest, still pretty unplayable. Oh, there we go, look at that. That is extremely playable like that. That's only at 8 megahertz, we've got 48. And of course, because it only speeds up the CPU, it's not going to affect things like the sound, but it also won't affect loading, so loading won't be any quicker. Sorry, but look at this. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. 16 megahertz, that should be really smooth now. Oh, look at that, yeah. So it's not really, well, it has sped up the game, but it's more that it's made it smoother, like the frame rate's much better. That is really nice. I'm just going to end that on, because I know what you'd like, you want to see the 48, don't you? I do as well, actually. Let's go right up to 40. So let's just pause a second. We've got 16, a Commodore 64 with 16 megabytes of extra RAM through the REU and 48 megahertz CPU. That's crazy, and it doesn't even cost that much to do it. We live in a wonderful world, despite the bits in the intro that I mentioned. Wow, so 48 is actually too fast, unless you kind of like playing this sort of weird way. But just see if I can go in. Look at that. I mean, wow. It almost reminds me of the warp speed mode on the Vice emulator. Okay, so that's good news. That works really well. I would say around 16 megahertz. That game is actually playable. So let's go on to the next one. Now I'm going to leave some of the best ones till last. I just want to try Super Mario Brothers because I know it runs at 2 megahertz on the Commodore 128. And it's a sprite-based game, so I don't think CPU speed is going to improve it that much. There's a little bit of glitching down here, but I'm not going to worry about that. No turbo available. We'll see about that. Yeah, I don't know what that was about. I was watching Hammer Horror last night, so let's get on with it. Oh, duh, start game. That did load a bit quicker than normal, I think. Oh dear. Oh yes, that's definitely... Oh, hold on. Okay, it's settled. No, it's screens glitching. Obviously the video memory is, yeah, it doesn't like that. Okay, so we won't bother with all the faster speeds, but let's have a look at least, let's see if the 2 megahertz of the 1 to 8 will work. Okay, that's just crashed, but that might just be test drive disk. So this is at the 1 megahertz standard speed. Start game. So it's this kind of game the 64 is really not good at. I remember I used to be a big fan of Revs, and as much as I loved the 64 back in the day and still do, the BBC Micro version of Revs running at 2 megahertz is way better. Which is something else we can actually try. Okay, nice beefy fast car. So here we go. Actually, to be fair, it's not that bad. It's not quite as bad as something like Driller and the other Freescapes. It's certainly playable, but a bit sluggish. Okie dokie, let's try it at a faster speed. The nice thing about this, you can do this on the fly, as it were. Let's try 4 megahertz. That's already a fair bit better. That's very playable like that. I suspect at 48 it's going to be too quick. I'm not really au fait with this game either, which doesn't help. Some other cars, let's see how that, yeah. Okay, so it's playable. Let's try, let's just crank it up. 16 megahertz, might be going a bit too quick now, but well, maybe not. I mean, this works really well, there's no glitches or anything. I don't know, although, I don't know why, maybe I did crash there. Possibly. Okay, Stunt Car Racer. Now this is a game that we used to play quite a bit back in the day, including on the Amiga, but also the 64 one was playable, made by Jeff Crammond, or partly I think the chap who made Revs as well. Still one of the best driving simulators ever made on the BBC Micro. But we're not here to do that, we're here to play 64. So let's try Stunt Car Racer, which is again quite jerky in the frame rate department. Okay, single player. Marquee. Don't care. Practice yet. Just do that for now. Ski jump or drawbridge. Actually, maybe not do that. Practice. Let's try the little ramp. So note the speed at which it draws the map there, not particularly fast, and the fairly low frame rate. I'd probably guess around 15 frames per second, but that's just speculation. Actually, it's not as jerky as I remember, it's not too bad. Steer a bit. Ah, the draw distance is pretty low actually, that was it. Yeah, and it is a bit jerky. But it is playable. You have to use your imagination there, because really it is just a game of geometric shapes. Whoa! So that's not too bad, and that's at the original 1 megahertz, so let's quickly try that now with a bit more. Let's try, actually just try 2, let's just see what's like twice as fast. Whoa. Okay, that's fast and pretty smooth, unlike my driving, which is just fast. So it's a bit of weird. That might be normal. I think that is normal. Actually, this isn't too bad, although the draw distance is quite difficult at this speed. It runs really well though. There is a poke if you've got Action Replay that will increase the draw distance. So I reckon at this speed with the improved draw distance, this would be really playable. Yeah, this feels good actually. I mean, it should be a fast game. You're in a stunt car. You wouldn't be plodding along at 20 miles an hour. Actually, I'm doing alright. So that's definitely a success. I will try just one more speed change. I'm going to go all the way to the top because it's just going to be yeah, unplayable. Let's try 4. Quick reset. Wow. Okay, yeah. That's only at 4 megahertz, and we can get to 48. But that is smooth. I mean, actually, okay, yeah, if I hit the brakes. Oh no, yeah, it's pretty much too much. Okay, let's move on to something else anyway. So I would say at 2 megahertz and the hack using the Poke on Action Replay or similar would be really good on that. Right, so I've loaded up the Commodore 128 version of Elite, even though we're on a Commodore 64. And the 128 version doesn't use the 128 mode, it just utilises the 2 MHz CPU. So that, just to be fair, well, that's running at 1 MHz. Let's run it at the speed it's designed for. See what that's like. Not seeing a huge amount of difference, maybe slightly faster. A lot of flickering in the graphics there. Limitation of the CPU and the frame rate, it's probably not drawing every frame. So that's that. Let's have a look then. Something like 8 MHz. I don't want to go to every single one, otherwise it'll be here a very long time and you would have changed to another video. If you haven't already, that is. Not a lot of difference there, maybe slightly less flicker. Oh, that was at 6, okay. Let's try it, 16 MHz, yes. Less flicker, I think. So it's not really speeding up, it is, but it is improving the frame rate, which is actually what we'd want in a game like this. Right, all the way to 48 MHz. If Jeremy Clarkson was here, he'd say power, but he's not. I am. Let's actually see if we can leave and get a sense of the speed differences. Still think the BBC Micro is the best version of Elite to play, especially with the coprocessor, Raspberry Pi. Not a fan of playing with joystick either. Yeah, the BBC's got a much bigger screen, much better sound. Like Revs, it was designed. The game was designed for that system, not for this one. Of course, there's nothing, there's no ships or anything. I can't remember the keys either. Okay, yeah. Map. Okay, I think I'm going to leave that there. So it looked like the frame rate was better. I probably need to do more research and do that properly really, but there we go, it is what it is. Okay, so it turns out that Another World is not the game I thought it was. It's a different game. It's not the cinematic Delphine masterpiece. So we'll skip that for now. So maybe I'll come back another video with Revs. We'll finish off with Starglider, which should be another good one to test the increased speed CPU. That definitely isn't Starglider, is it? That's better. It is one of those days, it's like 34 degrees in here. Worse, I have to shut the window because that damn dog keeps barking. Sweating buckets, I can't put the fan on because of the noise on camera. Ay ay ay, the things I do to make a video. Anyway, enough whinging. Let's get on with Starglider, which should hopefully run nice and fast with the increased CPU speed. Okay, Starglider. You have manual control. Okay, it's one of those reverse control jobbies. I don't really know the keys, so maybe this is any of the ships, anything we can shoot at, or bond with, or mate with, or anything with. There we go. So pretty jerky. but it works. Okay, let's try a boost in speed to, let's try 8, let's just go crazy. Oh wow, okay, well that is superb. It's fast, very fast, but it's lovely and smooth as well. So that works really, really well. Might be a little bit too quick, but I'll put it at full speed, which is going to be ridiculously impossible to play, I think. Yeah, okay. You can see it's quite a bit faster. So just to finish this bit, I think if we can find the sweet spot, I reckon. So I'm going to try it at about 4. It's still super quick. Oh, that's nice. Very nice indeed. So somewhere between 4 and 8 seems to be the sweet spot, depending on your reaction times and blah blah blah. Okay, so that works really well. So far, yeah, we've got some good improvements with games that use 3D polygons, which is to be expected. I get the feeling that I need to do more with Elite, that maybe we didn't really test it properly, but there's only so much I can do in this video. It is a marathon and it's going on a while, so let's get on to the next part, which is kind of my favourite in some ways, which is the demos. So first demo is a really nice demo called Globe from 2016. It only uses the 512K REU. And as far as I know, that doesn't matter that we're using 16 meg option. Oh, there's that dog again. So this is the demo, and it's super smooth as it is actually. This is in 1 megahertz. Really impressive demo, and it's a 512K REU. But let's have a looky. Let's try that 10 megahertz, that's 10 times faster. Don't think that's made any difference. It's probably because it's REU and it's just streaming large amounts of data into the RAM. So CPU speed wouldn't make any difference. Still, it's an impressive demo nevertheless. Let's move on to the next one. Another 512K demo called Radiotastic at 4 megahertz. Ah, okay, that's glitched out completely. Probably not surprising. So it looks like for REU demos there's not going to be any change, but also 10 megahertz. Just interested to see whether 2 megahertz will work. No. Okay. We could load Dawn. See how we get on with that. It's called Dawn because it's actually set at the time of day, Dawn, and of course also her name is Sarah. Got a feeling this won't work, or work, but it won't make any difference. But we are here to find out. Yeah, no, so REU doesn't make any difference. Okay, so we've gone through most of the games, or the ones that would work. We've got GEOS still. I think I'm going to leave that for another video and maybe do Elite again with it, after having done a bit more research, and also see if I can get Revs working properly. I don't want this video to go on for too much longer. I mean, in summary, it does actually work really well on certain styles of games, mostly polygon kind of 3D flight sims and games like Stunt Car Racer. We'll have to see, and Test Drive of course, we'll have to see about Revs at another time. So I mean, this is actually a free update as well. So again, we've got a 16 megabyte REU machine with up to 48 megahertz CPU. Now this won't work on the Ultimate 2, that won't be a firmware upgrade. If you think about it, you obviously won't, because that's using the original CPU. And so in summary, it will speed up some games, but what's really exciting to me is A, the homebrew scene. Let's see if they do anything with it. I can see some amazing games coming out of it. And also B, the demo scene. I really hope I'm sure they will get on and do some demos for this, which would be, just imagine what they can, I mean, you've seen what they can do with less than 1 megahertz. Imagine what they'll be doing with up to 48 megahertz. So I'm excited for the demo scene especially. And homebrewers, I beg you, please use the REU and use this 48 megahertz. You could simply make this machine come to life again. Not that it's not living, but it will be mind-blowing. And also it's going to compete pretty well against the Spectrum Next, which is a machine I don't have. It's far too expensive, but I hope to have some point. So there we go, I'm waffling way too much. So thanks for watching this far and putting up with me, and I'll see you in the next video. Retro Marky out.